Hello there, welcome back. A simulation game about slavery is on the school curriculum across the United States, but the seemingly creative approach to teaching history to children has been widely criticised with the hashtag #SlaveSimulation. Twitter users have been voicing their outrage. One tweet says the game is a blatant example of continued commodification of black experience, and there's a horror show that explains why not all history works as simulation there, and while others just say, well, it's not okay. RT's correspondent Guyane Chichikan, she reports on the controversial game.
You are Lucy King, a 14-year-old enslaved on a Kentucky plantation. You want to escape, but how will you do it?
This game is being advertised to teachers across the country as a way to help students put themselves in quote-unquote the shoes of a slave so that they can better understand that chapter of U.S. history. When Rafrance Davis, whose job in Arlington, Texas is to choose educational material for teachers, received an email recommending this game for the school's U.S. Black History Month, she went online and blasted the game in social media. I had the chance to speak with her. Here's what she said.
You like to be a slave, so the idea that a game can give a person, it doesn't matter who that person is, the sense of what it felt like to fear for your life, to know of everything that could possibly happen to you, whether that be rape, beating, death, mutilation, whatever the case may be, as a slave is preposterous.
This game has been in use at schools for several years now. It got some positive reviews in the media. The USA Today called it realistic, brilliant, fascinating, a powerful game that all kids should play. The game even received awards, but it's only now that it comes under fire. Here are some of the comments in social media. I can only imagine what the Holocaust game would be like. Another user notes that learning doesn't always need to be fun. When it's about slavery, it shouldn't be.
It's geared for 5th through 8th grade students, and that under that whole guise of students will only learn about this point in history if it's fun, if they can win points or badges, and that is so not the case. I mean, you can have rich conversations with students. You can have them dig into primary resources and research and look at or talk to people who still have connections to that point in time in history to get a sense of what it is that they need to feel, or to get a sense of what it is they need to learn without going this route of a watered down look at history.
There are still many people who do see this game as an educational material, but Rafrance Davis's protest in social media has raised the question of whether children should be learning about tragic chapters of their country's history through video games. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chekyan, RT.
Militants from Islamic State have burned 45 people to death in the western Iraqi town of al-Baghdadi. Iraqi officials believe that some of the victims were members of the security force. The town that's near an airbase was captured by Islamic State fighters last week, but the massacre follows the similar execution of a Jordanian pilot in the beginning of February. That sparked outrage in the country. However, as Beltrue reports, there are supporters of the jihadi group inside Jordan.
Jordan's response to the Islamic State group's brutal murder of its captured pilot was swift.
The revenge will be as big as the calamity that has hit Jordan.
But as the country launches airstrikes in Syria, the leadership faces a bigger threat back at home: support for extremist groups here. According to a September poll, as much as 10% of the country does not think ISIS are terrorists.
This is Zaka. It's one of the poorest cities in Jordan and a hotbed for Islamic extremism. It's also the hometown to one of Jordan's most famous jihadis, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who set up an al-Qaeda group in Iraq that was the precursor to the so-called Islamic State. Now, many of the estimated 1,500 Jordanians who've gone to fight jihad in Syria and Iraq come from here. Despite this, the horrific acts of violence perpetrated by ISIS, including the burning of the Jordanian pilots, there is still growing support for the group here and in other underdeveloped cities across the country.
Abu Mohammed's son was detained last week for allegedly supporting ISIS after he bought a mug with their flag on it. Abu Mohammed says soaring unemployment is to blame. It's at 40% in his area.
There are a lot of extremists here. Joblessness is to be blamed, as it leaves you two options: become a religious fanatic or a thug.
The Jordanian government has launched a fierce crackdown, jailing hundreds of suspected jihadis like Mohammed for liking Facebook pages, sharing the burning video and having pro-jihadi merchandise. But rights advocates say this will only exacerbate the problem, and the state should focus on educating vulnerable youth, not fighting wars in Syria.
The government is pushing the public to go to war that isn't even ours. Our war is here, at home.
But the government is likely to step up its attacks on ISIS in Syria and Iraq.
I think our reaction to them is going to intensify in the coming weeks and months. So all options are open for Jordan.
But with rising support for extremists within the Jordanian population, the country may find its biggest fight yet is at home. Belle True for RT Aman.
The British Post Office has a new vacancy. The basic requirements for the £1,100 a month job include retail experience, a second language, and to be physically and mentally fit. But there are some catches too. The office is in the UK's furthest outpost. It's in Antarctica. And that gives the job some unique features, to say the least. First, there's no mains power or heat. Showers, they're a rarity, not more than once a month there. However, the social life, well, it's quite diverse. There might only be 3 people around, but there are over 2,000 smelly but gorgeous penguins to keep you company. Lisa Ava, she's a coordinator at the spot, and she thinks the experience is all well worth it.
You have to be prepared to live in quite extreme conditions. It's not only the weather that's extreme. We like people with practical skills. There's always the outside maintenance. And living on an island that's the size of a football pitch, it's very, very small, along with, nearly 2,000 to 3,000 penguins is a very interesting and enjoyable experience.
Well, that left you feeling a little bit cold, and there's still plenty of other professions out there. So the food industry, well, they always need tasters, don't they? So including those who try pet food or something even grosser. Cockroaches and other creepy crawlers are on the plate of gross stunt testers who work for TV game shows in which participants are challenged to eat all weird and wonderful things. Much more relaxing, though, it's a water slide tester, all fun and actually good money as well. And ice hockey fans, well, they might be glad to know that from time to time there's a vacancy for the Stanley Cup carriers. All right, coming up next, it's Abby Martin. She brings you the story from behind the mainstream headlines in Breaking the Set.